You guys have made it this far. You're in the semis. Fantasy Football Championship just a week away. Most of your leagues, if you make it this far, maybe you've already gotten a little piece of the pie. Maybe next week, even if you finish in second place, you're still collecting. You're still making some more money from the season. And now you have a chance to put it all together with the two of us. Welcome in, everybody. It's Wake and Rake. He is my guy, Fensty, of SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio and Alarm After Hours, which you can hear when, Justin Fensterman? When can people tune in and hear the dulcet sounds of your voice?
Ben, Monday through Friday, midnight Eastern. I'm telling you, I'm going to keep you up at night. But you know what? You're going to be sleeping like a baby when you get the advice that we are giving you on Alarm After Hours.
First of all, that's beautiful. Secondly, for anybody that's had to been driving in the middle of the night, you need somebody to keep you going. You don't want to take caffeine at 11 o'clock at night. That's going to just keep you going all night. You got that natural caffeine, and then everyone just moves forward and gets themselves going. All right, look at this, Fensty. We got 3 questions coming in. We haven't even been on for more than a minute. People want to know what to do today because there's a bunch of matchups. There's a lot of intriguing possibilities, and there's some injury news that we got to figure out. All of this is coming in real time, so get your questions in. We're with you guys for the next hour, leading up until 11:30 a.m. East Coast time, 10:30 a.m. Central time. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter. Fensty is at Fensty Sports, and I am, of course, at Benny Heis. All right, so we're looking at the slate in total, Fensty. There's a bunch of really intriguing matchups. There's some bad games on the slate, too. And I'm just wondering, if you look and sort of zone in on the slate, is there anything in particular that is really standing out, that is something that you just need to talk about at this point in time?
I mean, we got to start with Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
This guy was left for dead. No one even thought of this guy at the beginning of the season. Ben, I am seeing questions come out. Patrick Mahomes versus Ryan Tannehill.
It's amazing, right? But there is snow. Yes. It may not look like it, Fensty, because I have this beautiful Kansas City backdrop behind me. It is not 70 and sunny in Kansas City each and every day of the week that I am on the air. It is snowing. It is coming down hard in the Kansas City area. Wind is picking up, I think, upwards of 15 to 20 miles per hour. So it's a legitimate question this week.
I know. It's funny to think that this is what it's come down to.
Always does.
And you don't want to get caught up too much in the matchups. I mean, in this situation, there's weather impact. So, yes. But, Ben, at some point, do you expect your great quarterbacks to be able to triumph even through what's going on in the natural environmental factors?
I think it depends, man. Normally you would think so. And again, I look at Kansas City and I think to myself, they're not really a run-oriented team. And I trust Mahomes in a solid matchup where they're big favorites at home to be able to get the job done even through the snow. That man's cannon, Fensty. No wind. He's like the post office. It doesn't matter whether it's rain or snow or sleet. It's not going to get in the way of him being able to deliver for you today. So I know that Ryan Tannehill is in a great matchup. I know, Fensty, that he's been the number 3 fantasy quarterback since week 7, only behind Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But am I playing Ryan Tannehill over Pat Mahomes at home, even with snow? I don't think I could pull the trigger on that.
I can't either, Ben. Again, this is why you drafted this guy. This is why you spent a first or a second round pick for these type of situations.
But
everyone was benching. Not everyone. People were benching Michael Thomas last week, Ben. People were benching Michael Thomas.
No, you can't do that. And look what ended up happening, even against the 49ers, where the matchup isn't great. When you have to trust volume, right? Even in a bad matchup, volume is key. It's crucial when it comes to the running back spot and the wide receiver spot, maybe to a certain extent to the tight end spot as well. But I think you would agree in the sense that quarterbacks, especially, this is when you can maybe make a little bit more moves and take a few more chances. You're not benching, if we're looking at running backs for today, okay? Christian McCaffrey, lock, play him every week. But Saquon Barkley, Fensty, the last several weeks, he's been bad. He hasn't been a fantasy asset for you. However, this is the matchup that you have to trust, and part of the reason you took Saquon Barkley number 2, number 3 overall, because he's going up against Miami today. And if he can't dominate against Miami, then you have a situation. But are you going with Patrick Mahomes, or are you going to go with somebody like Austin Eckler? Eckler's been great, but it's a really tough matchup against Minnesota with a lower total. I'm going Saquon Barkley here.
Yep. No, you were going Saquon Barkley. And for all those that are very disappointed with Alvin Kamara as well for the Monday night
Yeah,
game,
it's a great
you're
call.
going Alvin Kamara. Okay, you got to go Alvin Kamara in this game. These, like you said, Ben, these are the types of matchups where this is why we drafted these guys early.
Right.
That's
However, there's always somebody that could get in the way of that. Like if it's between Alvin Kamara and Todd Gurley, I think you have to go Todd Gurley.
You do. I mean, but man, again, it's so hard when you have to think about benching your first round pick.
I know, but these are the circumstances that have been placed. Fensty, I think I see 15 questions coming in. So before we get to them, and I see them from our buddy Seth and Corey and Chris and Sporting KC Chiefs, Sizzle, Kimster, B Gross, PD Dub, Sean, Quinn, and You Done Son 13, all of which we will get to here on the show. So if you do have questions, make sure you send them in. We'll get to them over the course of the show, and we'll do them in the order in which they were received. So hang in there. We will make sure that we get all of your questions if you have asked them. And don't forget to send us them on Twitter as well, at Benny Heis, at Fensty Sports. Before we start to dive in to these, somebody like Barkley and Kamara, like, you play him, but like, who are what are the circumstances, at least for today, where you feel like, okay, I have to go with somebody else instead? Like, do you worry about their results leading up to the start of today's games?
No, I don't. I mean, look, people are starting Raheem Mostert over some of these guys. Mm-hmm. This is, again,
it's a good matchup for him, though.
I mean, look, Mostert's been great lately, but there are other guys there. So we can't exactly be surprised if all of a sudden another San Fran running back comes through.
Right. Yeah, Shanahan's going to ride the hot hand. And again, Fensty, volume is key. Who is getting in the way of Saquon Barkley today? Nobody. Who's getting in the way of Alvin Kamara today? Is it going to be Latavius Murray? Probably not. Right. So those are the things that you have to trust, especially going into these types of matchups.
Then
and also,
two more things we have to talk about very quickly, and this is the first one. And we must address this right now.
Okay.
T.Y. Hilton is a true game time decision. It's a Monday night game. You can't start this guy unless you're really out of options. And it's the wide receiver. There's always someone out there. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be the guy that takes that risk for damaged goods T.Y. Hilton, let alone we don't even know if he's going to play? He didn't practice yesterday. Are you going to be the one with the zero burger on Monday night? It's not going to be me.
I can't. I can't do it. Even though it's indoors, even though T.Y. Hilton historically over the course of his career has been great in domes, but it's a bad matchup. Saints defense is legit. I know that they got torched by the 49ers last week. I don't expect that to be the case this week. The Colts end up running a much slower offense. They're more run predicated. That's what they're going to try to do to beat New Orleans too, is they're going to run it with Marlon Mack. Even though the Saints have been good against the run, they're going to try and control time and possession. I think the strategy that they implied against the Chiefs on the road at Arrowhead in the Sunday night game is what they're going to try to do to keep this game close in New Orleans. And T.Y. Hilton doesn't spend a ton of time in the slot. That's where you can have a really advantageous matchup. Frank Reich's going to move him around, but you can't afford that zero burger. You can't. Right. So I don't think I'm playing him this week.
Here's another question, Ben. Talk about early draft picks. James Conner. Yes, he's going to be active.
I can't do it.
Thank you. I was just about to say, I'm seeing reports that he's splitting carries. That's not ideal.
It's not ideal, and part of the reason that it's not ideal is because you drafted James Conner because you thought he was going to be a workhorse back again. That's been the Mike Tomlin philosophy all throughout Le'Veon Bell and last year with James Conner. So let's say he does come back. Oh, James Conner, I took him in the early part of the second round. Well, what's happened this year is that James Conner hasn't been able to stay on the field. You've incorporated Benny Snell and Jalen Samuels into the mix. What's stopping Mike Tomlin from saying these guys have contributed throughout the course of the season? We've been able to rely on these guys more so than James Conner. Why would I take them out of the rotation at this point? I need everybody healthy down the stretch. So I'm not playing James Conner tonight. And frankly, I have a lot of trepidation for anybody that is.
It's a very risky move. Again, this guy, I mean, look, the Bills, can you run on them a little bit? Sure, yes. You can. But at the same time, I don't know how these carries are going to be divided, and it scares the hell out of me.
I'm not getting involved in it at all. I think there's plenty of the really good running back plays. There's still a couple that might be even available on your waiver wire as opposed to James Conner. Again, we'll get to all of your questions coming up in just a moment. Remember, quarterbacks, defenses, these are all situational spots that you can figure out today. Like, if you've gotten burned by Philadelphia's defense in the past, I think you can trust them today against Washington. If you've been burned by the Kansas City Chiefs defense in the past, they are at home where they have been substantially better all year going up against a rookie quarterback. Yes, it is a homecoming.
No, I mean, look, you know what? At the end of the day, and this is, again, why I'm getting rid of defenses in my leagues, it's so hard to figure this type of thing out, Ben, when it comes to team defenses. I'm trying to figure out if I could spot start any defenses at this point because I'm very scared.
I would understand. I would be totally scared too. All right, should we get to some of these questions? Should we get help out the people?
Let's do it.
Okay, starting with our buddy Seth, who has been with us each and every week. To half-point PPR between Cortland Sutton versus the Chiefs in Snowy Arrowhead or Odell Beckham Jr. on the road against Arizona. Now, normally, Fensty, we would look at this and say, it's Odell. Cardinals defense has been one of the worst at shutting down wide receivers all season long. Arizona runs a ton of plays on offense, so they're going to get off the field, give Cleveland plenty and ample opportunities to get on down the field as well. But Sutton sees targets consistently. Sutton puts up results consistently. And I think based on game script, they're going to be behind throughout this game. But are you trusting Cortland Sutton in the snow, Fensty, to be able to get it done against Kansas City over Odell Beckham Jr. this week? He had a great matchup against Cincinnati and did nothing with it last week.
Right, and I am worried about the weather in this regard, Ben. The weather, the inexperience of Locke. I mean, again, I'm a bit worried about this situation, Ben. I may still have to just be safe because it's playoff time and go with Odell Beckham Jr.
Which is crazy because Odell Beckham, in every sense of the word this year, has not been a safe play. The safer play consistently all season long has been Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton has seen no less than 5 targets pretty much all season long, and that was in that win against the Chargers back on the 1st of December. And he still had 74 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. He sees a ton of volume in this offense. Beckham has been very inconsistent, but I think I trust that matchup a little bit more today. I think I would roll the dice on Odell Beckham Jr. in the semifinals.
I'm just going to say there's been a few teams lately have had trouble against Cincinnati for some reason. I don't know why. We think it's going to be a cake matchup. I remember when the Jets went against them. I thought it was going to be easy. I stacked Jets that week, and it didn't work out. And then we saw it once again with the Browns. However, you go back to that Miami matchup, which is more comparable to me to the Arizona matchup. And when you're seeing Beckham and what he did against them on 8 targets, 6 receptions, a touchdown there, I'm thinking that you're getting a similar stat line with him.
Yeah, and again, I wonder what his ownership on DraftKings is going to be after he's burned everybody all day. Like Beckham in tournaments, I think is perfectly legitimate play. You can do a Cleveland stack, run it back with maybe Christian Kirk on the other side. Maybe somebody like Kenyon Drake could possibly be in play at very low ownership. So that might be, if I'm looking in deep tournaments, Fensty, that might be one way to go, considering that it's the 3rd highest total on the board today.
Right. No, I don't mind that, Ben, at all. It's like stacking the Browns. I get that, but at the same time, when you're looking at Nick Chubb, for instance, I mean, that's you already have him in that stack. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. not that expensive as well when it comes to daily. I don't mind it, Ben. Again, you got to try to find a way to be different in tournaments, and everybody hates Cleveland. Everyone hates Cleveland always, no disrespect. But this week and the last few weeks, everybody's especially hated Cleveland.
What if I told you, you're speaking of getting different in tournaments today, what if I told you that I don't mind a Jacksonville stack, a Jacksonville-Oakland stack today?
Okay.
Little Gardner Minshew, Fournette, and maybe Chris Conley, who's taking the spot of DJ Chark, run it back on the other side with Darren Waller. I think you have sub 5% ownership in that game.
No, I don't mind that at all. And again, it's a great matchup against Oakland. Ben, you can beat that secondary. So when it comes,
I've been working on my burst and agility.
Yes, well, Ben, you're a good-looking, nice-built man, and you'll be able to dominate that secondary, just like I'm expecting D.D. Westbrook to, by the way.
So D.D. Westbrook is a really interesting guy. He's very similarly priced with him and Darius Slayton today. Right. Who would you rather go with? Who would you rather go with?
Oh, man. I personally, I'm going to go with Slayton. After what I saw Monday night, I'm going to go Slayton. But I love both of these guys, and I will be having them in a few of my lineups, the same lineup.
Yeah, which reminds me, I need to send you that invite on DK today.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. They may get lost in the 45 other ones I have. So don't be offended if I don't participate.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry, don't be offended if I don't see the invite. So
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Very good. I won't give out your handle though. I know that
No,
you've been inundated a little bit.
a little bit.
Little bit. Our buddy Corey out in Winnipeg checks in. He says, "Happy holidays, boys. Do I go with Russell Wilson or Drew Brees today?" So Russ is on the road against Carolina, coming off a game that was really disappointing, Fensty, because it was a great matchup for him, and he finished with 0 touchdowns against the LA Rams, and that's just not going to get it done. Finished with an interception as well. I believe that game and the game against the Eagles were two of his lowest output games of the season, just over 11.5 points. Like Fensty, Russell Wilson had been carrying people into the fantasy playoffs, and he promptly let him out of the fantasy playoffs. This is a game that I think he needs to step up and have a big game. But also Drew Brees at home against the Colts. We saw what he's capable of last week. I still think I'm leaning towards Russell Wilson. It's a higher total. I expect more of a shootout type of game. And I would anticipate we actually see a little bit more of the running game for the Saints, because that's what the Colts are going to likely do. They're going to want to control tempo. And I feel like Drew Brees, this is one of those 250 yards and maybe a touchdown or two. I think Russ could go for over 300 and throw for multiple touchdowns today.
See, I'm thinking that Monday night will be a shootout as well.
You do? Okay.
I'm more on the Brees side.
Okay.
Again, I love the matchup. I love attacking Indy. You're right. Pace definitely does take it away a little bit when I'm saying lock it in, but at the same time, I'm personally going Brees on this one. So we're split.
Okay. Yeah. So, Corey, I know that's not particularly helpful. I do think Russell is a really intriguing.
It's a good spot to be in. Both of them have fine matchups. And you know what? It's a good spot to be in. So even if you don't exactly get the answer you want, if we don't have a consensus agreement, just know you're in a good spot most of the times when that happens.
The other thing, too, that I think people should consider is that with everyone's going to be on Chris Carson today, and rightfully so. He's going up against the Panthers defense. They've been so bad all season long against the run. What a great leverage spot. If you're playing in tournaments this week, to go with Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, or Russell Wilson and Jacob Hollister or DK Metcalf, to be able to go off of Chris Carson in the event that it ends up becoming a shootout and they're just going downfield, boy, you could have tremendous leverage over the rest of the field by not playing Carson and by playing Russell Wilson with one of his pass catchers instead.
And if you're looking to stack that game, on the other side, run it back with Ian Thomas.
Yeah.
We're looking for that value. I almost said value point guard. This is what happens when I'm doing two sports. Value tight end option. I mean, this guy is just so cheap. He got double-digit targets last week, Ben. No Greg Olsen. And Seattle against tight ends? Come on, man. They're one of the worst in the league.
Right.
That's where Ian Thomas, you can run it back with him.
And I also think DJ Moore is in a fantastic spot, and again, may be overlooked with all the different matchups that we're talking about, looking and focusing at the running game. You're right. Thomas is the great value play, but I think DJ Moore might be overlooked a little bit today. One other one coming in. This is from also coming in from Seth. And again, all the different people that have sent in your questions, we go in order that they're sent. So hang with us. We'll make sure each and every one of your questions gets answered on the show today. Seth says, half point PPR, sit one of the following. So one got to go. Miles Sanders, who's going up against Washington, Devin Singletary on the road against the Steelers, or David Montgomery on the road against the Green Bay Packers.
I got my answer.
I think my answer is probably the same as yours. Who are you setting?
I'm sitting Singletary.
I am too.
Here's the deal with Sanders, with no Jordan Howard. Sanders is set up. Also, let's just remember this as well with the Eagles. We're talking about guys like Greg Ward and Arcega-Whiteside. They have no one at this point. They have no Aguilar. They have no Deshaun Jackson. They have no Alshon Jeffrey. They got to get it to someone. And Miles Sanders, I'm expecting some receptions today. Also, David Montgomery. Don't really like him. Overall for the season, I was expecting him to be a little bit more impactful.
I was too.
But the matchup is just so great. And I can't bench David Montgomery.
Let me get personal for you for a second. Would you play David in a half point PPR? Would you play Montgomery or Amari Cooper today?
Dang.
Because Amari Cooper is going to be shadowed by that. That's one of the decisions that I'm weighing today. Right now, I have Amari in because I think he's capable of beating Jalen Ramsey. I think Dallas is going to need him today. But Montgomery, you're right. He does have a good matchup. Green Bay, I think, is 27th in rush DVOA this year. Like, that's how you beat Green Bay, and it's also freezing cold. And I think he's going to get upwards of 15 to 20 plus carries today. But
Right.
again, if I'm looking for upside, I think you got to go Amari.
I hear that. And again, if you feel like you need the points, then that's where you could go Amari. I'm going to go again, David Montgomery. I like chasing the Packers and chasing their run defense. And, with that, Ben, as much as it stings, I'm going to have to say Montgomery. So if I lose, I owe you a Shirley Temple with vodka in it.
I feel like the whole point of the Shirley Temple is that it doesn't have vodka in it.
Right.
What's a Shirley Temple with vodka?
It's called a Dirty Shirley, and it's my drink.
Chris checks in on Periscope. I think he meant to say Singletary because it says Singleton. But he wants to know whether so I'm going to go with Singletary, Chris.
I remember a former NBA player.
Well, there's also Chris Singleton, the former MLB player that is, I believe, on ESPN too for MLB games. That's beside the point. Devin Singletary or Alvin Kamara today, Fensty. Alvin Kamara has not been getting it done, but I think you got to trust him in this matchup.
Yes, you're trusting him here.
Okay,
that's go with him.
From Sporting KC Chief, Jared Cook or Jack Doyle at the tight end spot. You got two tight ends facing off against each other, Fensty, in the Monday night matchup. Where do you go?
I mean, Cook's a little banged up, but he should be active. So this is one, by the way, where you're still going to have to watch the injury notes.
Correct.
If you're considering. The thing is with T.Y. Hilton, I mean, even though he's coming back and we're saying, hey, we don't trust him if he plays, that's going to be taking targets away from Doyle. That's the problem, Ben.
It's going to be taking targets away, but
I may have to go with Cook here.
Cook had 2 receptions last week. He only played 8 of 72 snaps, 2 catches, 64 yards. Both of those catches were touchdowns. If he's able to go, I mean, the amount of red zone volume that he's gotten lately has been absurd. He's got 4 touchdowns in his last 4 games, and also had 6 and 8 targets in two of his last 3 games before the 2-target game when he left against the 49ers. I think Cook is probably the higher upside play. Doyle will see some targets, but for a guy that's like usually readily available in the middle of the field to get 6 targets and basically do nothing with it, I thought was very disappointing last week.
Yeah, and it hurt my DFS lineups too.
So I think Cook is probably the play. I like him especially at home against the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe it's a higher floor for Jack Doyle, but I think the upside is there. Even though Fensty, I don't like to chase touchdowns. Just the red zone usage is something that I think people need to be conscious of and be aware of moving forward. From Sizzle, he checks in another favorite of ours. Says, morning, fellas, half-point PPR, Odell Beckham Jr., James White, or A.J. Brown. So we talked a little bit about Odell Beckham Jr. We took him over Cortland Sutton. James White has a dream scenario matchup going up against the Bengals on the road where the Patriots are 10-point favorites, so game script should very heavily involve him. Then A.J. Brown in the highest projected total of the game going up against the Houston defense, Fensty. So what are we doing with this one?
Man, again, if you're chasing the points, I'm going to go A.J. Brown for this one. I think he's set up. I mean, if Ryan Tannehill is going to succeed, it's going to be because of this guy for the most part. So I'm looking at A.J. Brown. This is a very difficult one because if you're looking at the safe play, it's got to be James White, especially now with injury notes that Julian Edelman may not even play.
If Edelman doesn't play, and again, I think both of these games are, let's say, Odell is in there. I think they're all 3:00 games, right? Or I'm sorry, no. New England at Cincinnati is a noon game. So at least you'll know if Julian Edelman is out. But do you think without Edelman that's beneficial to James White, or do you think?
I feel like it's a safer play. It makes him the safe option of the 3.
Okay, I'd be curious to see what the correlation is with James White to Edelman. I think it's actually positive when both of them play together. So my concern is that, they've been doubling up on Julian Edelman, and that's left White to have a little bit more opportunity in the passing game. If Edelman isn't playing, what's not to say that they're not going to be able to look towards James White and say, this is the guy that we have to stop? Is it because it's Cincinnati and they can't stop anybody anyway?
Right. No, you know what? When it comes to Cincinnati, though, I mean, you could guarantee more short passes, though. That's the big thing. Okay. And that's where I love James White. And that's why I feel like it's the safer option. It's a very difficult question because I love A.J. Brown. I mean, attacking Houston, it's just too easy.
It's very easy. I think I'd probably lean that direction I think A.J. Brown would probably be the guy for me just because I know that he has big playability. I know that Tannehill looks his way in
No
the red
Adam
zone.
Humphries.
Right, exactly. And Houston's just been bad. They've been one of the worst red zone defenses in the NFL. So I know A.J. Brown's had some down weeks, but I think the confidence of Tannehill is leading him in the right direction. I think I'm going A.J. Brown.
He's been scoring a lot lately, Ben. That's the thing with A.J. Brown, getting in that end zone. And with that, I mean, he's got to be one of the more trustworthy options if you have him as a dart throw. I mean, that's a good player to put in. Again, we're talking questions about Ryan Tannehill versus Mahomes. I'm going to keep bringing that up. Who's going to be engineering those points for Tannehill? That's where A.J. Brown is going to be coming in.
No doubt about it. Or Tannehill uses his legs and starts running. It's remarkable to think, too, that, 7 years in the league, does nothing. All of a sudden goes to Tennessee, finds some confidence, and this is the guy they all expected him to be.
You know what, though? He wasn't terrible in Miami, Ben.
He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't at this level.
No, he wasn't at this level. And that just shows that Adam Gase is a really terrible coach and needs to be put on an island by himself and not be a coach in NFL and poison NFL teams anymore.
That man has aged so fast. Adam Gase used to be like a young, decent-looking dude, when he first got started, and now, all of a sudden, he's a mess.
It was like how Obama looked at the end of his presidency.
Right. I mean, I would have looked that way too, and I've been dealing with what he was dealing with for the last 4 years. That's beside the point. Kimster, 4060 checks in. It's a wide receiver question. We got to pick one of these three guys, Fensty. Devontae Parker against the New York Giants, Michael Gallup at home against the Rams, or Deebo Samuel at home against the Atlanta Falcons. Tough wide receiver toss-up between those three. Again, Devontae Parker, if he's healthy, and it's all indications appear that he is.
Concussion protocol.
He did clear it. So he's going to play today.
Yes.
Gallup going against the other side, he's not likely going to have Jalen Ramsey shadowing him, so that's a positive for him. And then Deebo Samuel gets the Falcons at home. I still think even with all the upside of these three guys, Parker is probably the play for me against the Giants because Giants secondary is just so bad, and Janoris Jenkins got released. So whoever was backing up Janoris Jenkins was even worse than Janoris Jenkins, and Janoris Jenkins was trash this year.
You know what? I'm fine with Parker as well. Again, I mean, this is what it's come to. We hated this guy for the last few years. Now we're relying on him to win a title. Now he's getting a 4-year contract extension.
It's amazing, right?
It really just amazing. What a world we live in. Come on. Everybody was talking about how trash this guy has been for the last few years. I mean, and now we're like Ryan Tannehill, now we're determined to get this guy in a winning lineup.
And you know what? You know who's not coaching Devontae Parker anymore?
Adam Gase.
That's right. From B. Gross, he checks in on Periscope. He says, I'm so torn. I need 3 running back, wide receiver flex in my PPR lineup. And he gives, see, B. Gross, this is one of those questions where you just make it super tough on us.
Wait, can I guess? He only put last names.
No, he did a combination of first names and last names.
Okay.
So we need to figure out a running back, a wide receiver, and a flex. This again, we do say we answer all of your questions, but you guys need to make your questions a little bit more straightforward.
You're like the nicest guy, Ben. You're like the nicest guy. I see fantasy experts and stuff go on these and be like, if you don't have first and last name, it's not happening. We're not answering. You're like, we love you. We're going to answer all your questions. But guys, help us, help you,
right.
Help dominate. That's right. What it's all about.
Give us 2, maybe 3 names. Like I love the station that I go on in New Orleans, on ESPN Radio New Orleans. Gus Cattengill, the Sports Hangover, it's an amazing show. He's my dude. The problem is that, I've told them this, people will call in and they'll say all right, I need you to help me decide between 4 of these 7 guys. And I'm thinking, right. Oh shit. I'm trying to scribble them down and I'm trying to put them all together. So right. we got to go either or 3 guys on the radio because it's just so hard to keep track of. So, all right. He needs a running back. He has Singletary, Miles Sanders, and Josh Jacobs. So of those 3 guys, I would go Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to play today. It's the best. Today. Okay, so that's your running back, B. Gross. Josh Jacobs. Wide receiver, he has Deebo Samuel, Michael Gallup, and Stephon Diggs. So Debo, Gallup, or Diggs. Diggs is probably going to be shadowed against Casey Hayward. There's a lot of reports that a ton of sharp money is on the Chargers today, and I can't figure out why. What have the Chargers shown you? Other than the fact that Minnesota struggles on the road and they're playing in a soccer stadium and Kirk Cousins, is there still a narrative surrounding it? Like, I don't understand that the line is moving in the direction of the Chargers, because what have they shown you all year? They beat up on Jacksonville last week. Right, congratulations. Everybody beats up on Jacksonville.
That's what you're right, but that's what people think about. What they've done for you, not for the whole season, but for the last week. If Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry, Mike Williams scored.
Yeah, finally.
So those guys helped me get to the semifinals. They're as good as gold. It's almost like back to zero now. They're in the positives, good credibility. That's how the common fantasy player thinks. And I get it. You know, we're talking about guys like A.J. Brown, for instance. I understand that. But, Ben, you're wondering why people are on the Chargers, seeing that little bit of positivity after last week? Come on, man. That's the reason.
I understand that. I understand why the public. I'm surprised about the professional bettors, why they're moving in the direction of the Chargers. Like, I feel like I'm missing something, because normally I try to stay on the sharp side. But for whatever reason, they're all on the Chargers, and the line is going to move. The line's already moved from Vikings -2.5 to, I think, Vikings are -1, and it might be a pick'em by the time this game starts. I can look at the Vegas lines while we're trying to figure this out. But at wide receiver, Debo Samuel, Michael Gallup, Stephon Diggs. Do you have a preference between those three? I'm
between Debo and Diggs here. I might, because, again, it's the Atlanta matchup. I might have to go Debo. I love Debo.
Debo's in a good spot, man. He really is. I think I'm going to go – yeah, I'll go Debo as well, although I don't mind the matchup for Gallup. So we'll agree on Debo. All right, so your running back is Jacobs, your wide receiver is Debo, and then he needs a flex. So the flex would be between Michael Gallup, Devin Singletary, Miles Sanders, Tyler Higbee, or Stephon Diggs. How do you feel about Tyler Higbee again today? Back-to-back weeks over 100 yards.
How can you not love the guy?
He's been excellent.
I can only imagine what his ownership is going to be. I honestly, Ben, this is the semifinals. It's week 15. I feel like Tyler Higbee has been top 10 most talked about players by the fantasy community in the last 7 days.
His price hasn't gone up on DraftKings too. I'm sorry, it has gone up, but it's gone up from like $2,500 to $3,900. And he had 8 targets in his first week, 11 targets in his second week, back-to-back seven reception games for over 100 yards, caught a touchdown against Arizona. Like, it's a great play. Great play against Dallas in the middle of the field. Even the Bears and their bum tight ends were able to move the ball against Dallas' secondary. So I think Higbee is your flex. So B. Grossi, thank you for giving us a convoluted question. We tried to answer it as best we could, and we will continue to move on. From PD Dubs, our buddy PD Dubs checks in. Says, hey guys, do I go with a Dak Prescott, Michael Gallup stack or a Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown stack, full point PPR in the semifinals? That's a really tough one for me, because I think it's a good matchup for both those guys. Again, I know that Ramsey has a chance to shut down Amari Cooper. But Dallas being at home, Prescott still for a long time being the NFL yards leader at the quarterback position. But then we talked about Tannehill and A.J. Brown as guys that are in a great matchup as well. Between those two stacks, do you have a preference?
I do. And I'm going to chase the points with this one. So if you're looking to chase the points like I am, you're going Tannehill Brown.
I think that's the play. Yeah, I agree with you.
You want to be safe and conservative. It depends what type of player you are. And by the way, that's not a cop-out. Everybody feels differently. I'm a more conservative player. There are times, especially now, there are times, though, when I will chase the points, when I know what I'm going into. If I'm facing Lamar Jackson, Ben, and I'm already down 40-something to nothing, then yes, why not go with Tannehill Brown at that point?
Right. I think that's the absolute play. And again, like it's matchup dependent. If you feel like you're projected to do really well with a safer lineup, then that's okay. And again, you're allowed to adjust on the fly. A lot of people forget that. If you have that's why you keep your flex open, Fensty. That's why you don't throw the 12 o'clock guy into your flex spot in case you need to make a decision or a late swap to try and get yourself a little bit more upside.
So many people make that decision, Ben, and I feel like it's a principle in fantasy football, and we've both been working in the space for the last 8-9 years at this point. And that's something I feel like that has just been unearthed today. And that's when you're in this type of situation, you've got a guy in the Thursday night game that you're unsure about his health, you start him at the position designation.
Yes.
You do not start him in your flex ever.
Right. And I think there's a difference because a lot of fantasy experts will say, oh, I think he's a flex-worthy play, which basically means he's, a wide receiver 4 or a running back 3. So, yes, it's a guy that theoretically you can put in the flex, but the flex just allows for flexibility.
Right.
So make sure that you have your late players into the flex if that applies to you.
Right. And by the way, and speaking of that, because we want to teach people how to become better fantasy players and definitely how to follow fantasy industry experts, when they say someone's a wide receiver 2, that doesn't mean necessarily in your lineups, he's the second wide receiver. That just means he's a B-level wide receiver when it comes to the matchup.
Exactly. That means he's anywhere between wide receiver 13 and 25 on the slate for that week. That's all that means.
For that particular week.
Correct. Let's continue on to your questions. Sean checks in and says, I need a flex in standard scoring between Phillip Lindsay, James Conner, or A.J. Brown. He also includes T.Y. Hilton, but we've already just decided we're not going to take the risk on him. So Phillip Lindsay is interesting, Fence. It's the first time his name's been brought up today. We've been talking about the snow in Kansas City, which, again, this doesn't look like it's snowing. I can most assuredly tell you that it is snowing in Kansas City. So Phillip Lindsay's going to get more of the rock today especially, but he was terrible, Fensty, the last time these two teams met, but he's also getting more volume.
And it's a standard league, Ben.
It's a standard league. James Conner, I still have my issues about. So between Phillip Lindsay or A.J. Brown, I feel like the touchdown-dependent guy is probably A.J. Brown. The guy that I feel like is going to get more in the end zone is A.J. Brown today. So I feel like that's the guy for me.
Yep, I do like Lindsay, even in this situation where he will get the ball a little bit more. But again, if Tannehill succeeds, it's because of A.J. Brown.
Right, so A.J. Brown is our pick. Good luck to you, Seth.
And if A.J. Brown fails today, we might have to retire. I'm just saying that.
Maybe we'll both pie ourselves in the face.
Oh, don't worry. I'll have to do that already because if Edelman doesn't play. So what's another pie?
yeah, multiple pies. Two pies, one expert.
Yeah, happy holidays, right?
You done, son. 13 checks in on Periscope. Tight end toss-up between O.J. Howard, but it's a good matchup, Jack Doyle or Jacob Hollister. So O.J. Howard is on the road for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Detroit Lions. That's a game that even though it makes all the sense in the world to feel good about Jameis Winston, we both have a lot of trepidation about considering his injury and considering that all of a sudden the Tampa Bay coming off a game where they keep putting up a bunch of points and it's back and forth. This could be a total letdown game for Jameis. After wins, they've won 3 straight. And again, it makes all the sense in the world for Jameis to be able to come out and dominate against a bad Lions team. But I just have why is it everybody has sort of that weird pit in their chest about this game for Jameis Winston? So we'll get to that in a second. So do you like Howard, do you like Doyle, or do you like Jacob Hollister this week?
I have to ask you a question, Ben.
Okay.
If Mr. Idiocracy, Luke Wilson, ends up playing, do you think that it takes away from Hollister at all?
If I look at the correlation play between the two of them, it really doesn't make much of a difference.
Okay.
So I look at somebody like Hollister as someone that will see a decent amount of targets. In the last 2 games, he has 14 targets in 2 games. The yards haven't been great. 22, 34, 44 in the last 2 games before that great game they had against San Francisco where he had 8 for 62 and a touchdown. So it's been a little disappointing to see Hollister's numbers from a yardage standpoint go down. But if it's between him or Doyle, Doyle's probably a little bit safer even up against New Orleans. I know OJ's been a little bit better, but I don't know. I have some trepidation there. I'm probably going, I take that back because OJ Howard, Fensty, 11 targets in the last 2 games, 9 catches for about 140 yards. Maybe right, OJ Howard is the right play.
I'm going to say this, okay? In this particular game, O.J. Howard, I think, is the answer between these three. However, that comes with a caveat. You know Jameis Winston. And you know O.J. Howard. And if he tries to catch the ball and do one of his behind-the-back fancy schmancy plays, he will not be targeted again. So it comes with a caveat. You know what you're getting because with Mike Evans' targets, someone has to get. Now, Justin Watson is going to be in. Rashad Perriman's going to be in.
Yeah.
Cameron Brate is still there. So, look, I'm going to go with O.J. Howard here. But there's some red flags in that situation. Just saying.
What do you think between the wide receivers replacing Mike Evans? Like, who would you lean towards between Rashad Perriman and Justin Watson, if any of them at all?
It sucks, Ben, but I don't want to trust any of these guys. I don't. It's like, I don't know. This is a situation where nobody knows. We're all guessing, and every industry expert and analyst are going to be put in a bag. And whichever receiver comes through, that's the quadrant that's just going to celebrate and think they're victorious and know everything. I'm being honest with you. I'm very scared of this situation. Chris Godwin's Chris Godwin. But then outside of Chris Godwin, it scares the hell out of me.
All right, you want a bold prediction? You want a hot take?
Ben, I want it to be the hottest take ever. Let's go.
All right, I think Justin Watson's going to win somebody a fantasy championship this week.
Okay. I've been reading that this guy comes back and he's immediately the second priority. So, but again, that's what you're chasing. You're chasing it from people who are thinking that it's going to be that way. So, right. Again, it's a total wild card. You're going into Tampa's offense blind outside of Winston and Godwin.
Right, absolutely.
And I include O.J. Howard in that comment.
Right. I just think Perriman's had too many opportunities where he's let down. You're talking about O.J. Howard and trust. Rashad Perriman, like, he's only been forced into the situation because of injuries. Like, he's not a trustworthy wide receiver. Winston immediately locked on to Watson last week, had 8 targets in the game, a freak-level athlete, which would surprise some people because he's a white guy. But he's I don't know, man. He's an intriguing name. And I think he's an interesting pivot off of Greg Ward today as well in daily. He's a little bit more expensive. He's $3,700 compared to Ward being $3,000. But something to watch out for. Maybe him and Conley together could help you save some money and spend up at running.
Conley, man. You're starting to inception me a little bit, man. Again, you're really on Conley today. I love it.
Well, the thing about Westbrook that scares me is that the yardage just really hasn't been there. Conley, he's going to be more consistent for you. And, up until last week, Chris Conley had been seeing plenty of volume in this offense and plenty of big plays. Just didn't happen last week against the Chargers. Oakland just gives up big plays in so many chunks. And I think Minshew is going to have a little bit more of an aggressive mindset. So, Conley at 3,600, man, $1,000 less than Westbrook, certainly a little bit more of a risky play, but I don't know. I think that's where I'm leaning, at least for now.
I like that, Ben. Again, from what I have read with Watson, he's the second priority. But again, we're going into this situation blind. You just have to know that, and you have to accept that. That's what a dart throw is.
That's without question. By the way, you done, Sonny said, do I play Adrian Peterson over James Conner? I don't know if I would, because it's still against Philadelphia's front seven.
Right.
I don't trust either of them. I'd probably lean Conner over them because Conner's got a better matchup.
The passing game, like if I felt Adrian Peterson had the skill set of Miles Sanders, then that would be
That's different. He doesn't, though. He's 1,000 years old. So, yeah, he's the Joe Louis of the NFL right now. From Quinn, says, I need a flex and a half-point PPR. Do I go with Sammy Watkins? Ooh, what a disaster that guy's been since week 1 of the NFL season. He says Rashad Breeland. That's not a wide receiver. So.
Maybe he means Perriman.
He could mean Perriman. Yes, because he says Winston's hand. So Breeland is the Kansas City corner. So Sammy Watkins, Rashad Perriman, Cole Beasley, or do I go with a running back like Boston Scott or Duke Johnson? I think if you're going to trust a safe option of those 3 guys, it's probably Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley's been a really good wide receiver for Buffalo the last several weeks. Now, again, it's against the Steelers defense, who have been very good, but in the middle of the field, Like Cole Beasley right now has been seeing 9, 7, and 7 targets in his last 3 games. He has 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games. Like Josh Allen clearly trusts him, but he's not going to be a priority over somebody like John Brown for Pittsburgh to stop. I think Cole Beasley is probably the play.
It is, but Boston Scott is very intriguing to me, Ben. Sanders can't do it by himself. We're relying on Greg Ward. They really don't have a lot of other options, and it's a good matchup for them. That's what bothers me about that.
Yeah.
Boston Scott is a 1-week wonder, but in this types of situations where Philly, is going to have to go to their running backs, I mean, Miles Sanders, especially going to be looking to get short passes more. Boston Scott, I feel like, is going to see his usage go up a little bit.
Right. No, I think that's perfectly fair. I still think I'd go Beasley. I just don't know if it's going to be another similar week.
Beasley's the safe option. Beasley is the safe option.
Now, if Sanders can't get it done again and they feel like Boston Scott can be the guy, then that's perfectly fine. But
yeah, I'm rushing to look to see what Sanders' health has been because, look, Arcega-Whiteside is not 100%.
He's not.
So I don't think Sanders is 100% either. That's the other thing, Ben. That's something that I'm very fixated on. I read something, and you read a lot of stuff. You read a lot of headlines and articles, Ben. I know you do a ton. You're great at keeping up with the industry. But I feel like Miles Sanders is also not 100%. Now, I'm not saying we've answered questions about Miles Sanders. He's still a very safe option, and they have no one else. Again, Greg Ward.
Right.
But still, it makes me wonder about Boston Scott's usage because they don't really have many other healthy options.
Yeah, so he might up getting more carries and opportunities than we would initially anticipate, which would leave Miles Sanders as more of a pass-catching option in that offense as well.
Ben, are you surprised that we're not getting questions about Dallas Goedert at all?
No, because again, we've talked about recency bias all show. What do people remember from last week? Zach Ertz. By the way, Zach Ertz got me from 1% to win my fantasy, to win my matchup, to 100%. That was crazy.
Ben, I just want to say, Ben, you're killing it this year when it comes to, in our league that you're in. I'm going to have to pay you a lot of money. I might have to file for chapter whatever bankruptcy with the amount of money I'm paying you.
Do you want to do a Michael Scott, I declare bankruptcy on this show?
I mean, dude, I just want to say, man, I'm very impressed. And you were in there last year. You were in the semifinals last year, and you nearly made it to the finals. You were one Zach Ertz non-reception away from facing me in the finals.
I remember.
I would have kicked your ass in the finals. That would have been a lock. But because of that, stupid Jory made it to the finals and beat me.
Yeah, and Jory was the number one seed at that time as well. I'm going up against the number 1 seed this year as well. Man, Fensty, that's been the story for me for the last few years in a lot of these expert leagues. Is I've made it to the semifinals and then just because the problem about getting to semifinals is that you don't get paid to make it to the semifinals. You make it to the championship game, you still get something on the line. So I'm hoping to buck that trend this year.
And I'll say this though, but if you're in a league, and this is something really big too, incentivizing. You should be incentivizing your leagues so that fairness occurs and everyone plays and sets their lineups. That's just, again, for the rest of the regular season. Weekly
payouts for
you have to do it. Because know what else? You have to reward the points leaders. Because, look, if Ben Heisler loses in my league this week, he's still getting paid because he won points. He's still getting his money back. If I didn't have that payout and he loses, he gets pretty much nothing, and that's not fair because you're the points leader. You're the best league your best team in the league.
Points leader. Had some tough losses though, but points leader, I'll certainly take that.
Because it sucks because I beat you in week 13 and it did nothing for me.
No, I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're not. You're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I even hear my son crying in the background. He was devastated about the loss as well. From Sean, full point PPR. Do I start Devin Singletary or Patrick Laird this week? Man, I think you go Laird. He's seeing volume. He's seeing pass catching opportunities. The backup to the backup to the backup to the backup running back in Miami is getting volume. He's become a social media sensation. I think Patrick Laird is the play, Fensty, against the terrible New York Giants defense.
Someone had to get a Laird tattoo I saw on Twitter.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And then Laird responds to it saying, literally, he's sorry. I love that.
Yeah. No,
I love people who except the fantasy community. There are others that'll be like, look, I don't care about your fantasy team. And I get that. When it comes from sports, at the end of the day, sports is a team effort. It's winning for the team. It's wins. And it's not about us and they're taking advantage of their stats. But I like when others embrace it.
Absolutely. Hey, my buddy Tyler over in Norman, Oklahoma is checking in today. Fensty, the outstanding Tyler McComas. You should check a show out on Monday through Friday on Sports Rush 1400 in Norman. PPR, Fensty, between Joe Mixon or Tevin Coleman.
I'm going Joe Mixon here.
Yeah, even against the Patriots, because, again, we don't know which 49ers running back is going to get the call.
Don't get caught up in the revenge game narrative because of this. A lot of people are. I talked about this yesterday on SiriusXM on Fantasy Sports Today. Again, it's like you said, Ben, a hot hand approach. We can't get too focused on that revenge narrative. It doesn't always come through. And in this situation, with a lot of backs and Matt Breida even there, that's a scary spot for Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, it just feels like it's going to be another opportunity where they're going to ride the hot hand. And, Mostert right now is the popular sexy name. But again, he could be surpassed by any of these guys very quickly. And so, again, that makes me awfully nervous heading into this game. So, Tyler, appreciate you checking in. I go on Tyler's show once a week over in Norman with him and Teddy Lehman. It's a great time. I appreciate him.
I'm jealous, Ben. I don't know a single person from Oklahoma, and I want to try to know someone that's from every single state. I don't know anyone from Oklahoma. You're going to have to introduce me to him so that changes.
I will, absolutely. Well, listen, maybe if anything, it's a good opportunity to go see a Boomer Sooner game out in Oklahoma. That would be a lot of fun for me.
The only person I know from Oklahoma is like JR Jim Rawls. I'm going to be a slobber knocker. That's wrestling. I know you're not a huge wrestling guy.
I'm not. I've gone to a couple WWE events when they've come to Kansas City. It was one of the most amazing people watching experiences of my life.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome as hell.
Yeah, and we got to sit like second row for it too.
Oh, look at you. You're all fancy schmancy over here.
Listen, when I was working
This is what happens when you take my money, Ben Heisler. That's what you're
No, I didn't pay for those tickets. Are you kidding me? I worked in radio.
Look at you, Ben. Okay, the rest of us plebes will have to sit up there in the 400s to maybe see specks in the ring.
Who was the really weird guy? I know I'm getting off on a tangent. People have questions. But he had these brothers. His name was Wyatt something.
No, Bray Wyatt. Yep.
Oh, that was the creepiest MFer of all time.
And it's become even creepier. He is now the WWE champion.
He is?
He is, and he has.
I thought it was Roman Reigns.
He's got this split personality thing where he's this nice guy, but then he's this fiend guy, and all
he
his
looks
matches,
like he eats children.
Yeah, I mean, he's scary. The Fiend, he's very scary.
Yeah,
man.
And his brothers he's weird. Just. Give me my traditional guys. Can they bring back Goldberg? That was my dude.
No. Goldberg can't come back, okay? Goldberg has ruined wrestling. He can't wrestle. Okay? I love the streak. I got his autograph. I've got a picture
Fensty,
with Goldberg.
he's a tribesman.
I know, but you know what the problem is? There are other guys there that have been fighting and scratching and clawing that can do 60, 80-minute matches if you ask them to. Goldberg can't be in the ring for more than 5 minutes.
Whatever happened to Stone Cold?
So he's just awesome. He can't wrestle though because he's had a lot of spinal fusion surgery.
That's no good. Okay. All right, we got 10 questions that we haven't gotten to, and people are like, stop talking wrestling, answer my damn fantasy questions.
Oh, that's going to get your question answered.
No, I mean, I think that's just what people are thinking, but thank you for letting me be the wrestling novice. All right, so let's go rapid fire through some of these, and we'll get to some of our favorite cash plays of the day before we say goodbye. From Fever, got a fever, and the only prescription is more fantasy. Terrible. I apologize to all of you guys for that.
Can we just go back to talking wrestling?
Sterling Shepard, Christian Kirk, or Zach Pascal for wide receiver. Pick one.
Kirk versus Shepard for me. I'm going to go Christian Kirk there.
I'm going to go Christian Kirk as well. It's a good matchup against Cleveland. I know that he might be shadowed by Randall, but they just move him all around, and I think he's going to see plenty of volume in a high up-tempo game. Kyler Murray has a chance. I think he's a cheap quarterback this week, but people are going to want to spend up. But I really do like Kyler Murray and Christian Kirk as a possible stack on DraftKings this week. From Cody E. Liv, need some upside at flex in a full-point PPR. Anthony Miller, LaShawn McCoy, so far no and no. Jones for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or Jacob Hollister. I'm leaning Anthony Miller. Miller in the middle of the field against Green Bay. I understand he's going to see targets. Ronald Jones against Detroit, certainly in play, or Jacob Hollister.
He said upside, though, and that's not Ronald Jones.
No.
He didn't say that, so he needs the points. So that, if he didn't say that, I would say Ronald Jones, but he needs the points, Ben.
Yeah, but the Green Bay, it's cold and snowy and potentially windy. I don't know if Anthony Miller's that guy either. I think Hollister might be the play. That's terrifying, but listen, here's the thing, Cody. None of those 4 players have any particular upside, but if there is anybody that might be able to get in the end zone, it's probably Jacob Hollister.
Yeah, I agree.
From Kay Kazomo on Periscope Fensty, Devontae Parker or Darius Slayton, pick one.
Ooh, I'm going to have to go with Parker, but both are in solid matchups against each other.
That's such a tough one for me. I'll go Parker. Parker consistently over the part of the season. Again, he's playing. Fitzpatrick can get him the football. Darius Slayton's still has to worry about Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard getting in the way. Parker's basically the lone wide receiver target. Maybe there's, if Alan Hearns is out there too. But
Albert Wilson has also cleared concussion protocol as well.
Right. I like Albert Wilson. Albert Wilson, really good dude from his time in Kansas City. Corey says, I see Kansas City is getting a lot of snow. I don't know what you're talking about. There's no snow behind.
It's so deceptive, Ben.
Do you play Tyreek Hill? Yes, absolutely. It's Tyreek Hill. It's the fantasy playoffs. He's still healthy. Go ahead and play him.
I got a question, Ben Heisler. I got a question. I'm interrupting because this is important here.
Yes.
He's not out. But I've read reports, because you said Tyreek, Tyrell Williams, he's dealing with a little plantar fasciitis. That's bad.
Yes.
That is a bad injury, and the only way that you can heal. He might be out there on the field, but that's not healing until he just sits out and sits there.
Correct.
That's one of the worst injuries in sports, because there really is no timetable for when you're 100%, and you've seen it lately in his stats. So just remember that if you're putting everything on the line for Tyrell Williams, just think about that, because he doesn't have a designation he's going to play. But plantar fasciitis, I'm telling you right now, that is limiting him.
And it means that Darren Waller is going to see 15 targets today.
Right.
So I think he's $5,500 on DraftKings. I know people are going to want to spend down and get Tyler Higbee, who's been great. But, Darren Waller might be a really, really good tournament play on DraftKings today. The problem I was just going to say, the problem is you want to spend up at running back this week, but you also want to try and have some exposure to Hopkins, who's $8K. And if you want Darren Waller in and get a decent quarterback, it's awfully tough to be able to figure out. I got to go back to the drawing board, I think, a little bit on my DraftKings lineup today.
Yeah, probably I'd say the value play of the year when it comes to fantasy football drafts, and this is when everyone was on, has to be Darren Waller.
Oh yeah, because nobody drafted him unless you're Matthew and Matthew Berry. Give him a lot of credit. My guy over at ESPN was all over Darren Waller from the very beginning, and I'm sure there were guys on your channel that were too.
100%. People were all over. 2 guys, Mark Andrews, who I was able to draft in the 11th round in a lot of my drafts. Darren Waller, the guy you get right at the end.
Absolutely. From RBD McCartney on Periscope, we got to go rapid fire through these fences because we still got a bunch of questions left. Jared Cook or Austin Hooper today?
I'm going to go with, Austin Hooper, he's healthy. I'm going to go with Austin Hooper with no Calvin Ridley there.
Yeah, I think that's the play as well. So we're both on Hooper. RBD McCartney, good luck. K Bateman 07 on Periscope. RB2 this week, Montgomery, Laird, or Singletary? You like Montgomery. You've convinced me a little bit more on him. You think he's safer than Patrick Laird?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Remember, Ben, you keep mentioning receptions, and they do have other options there in Miami. Just saying.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. All right, so we'll go with Montgomery there. From Fusion V on YouTube Live, full PPR, Allen Robinson, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel.
Allen Robinson, lock him in.
Allen Robinson against Green Bay?
Yep, I'm not benching Allen Robinson.
No, the volume is too good. Also, full point PPR, Austin Hooper, Tyler Higbee today.
Man, for this one,
I think you go back to Hooper.
Yeah, it's a very tough one. Again, this is a good situation to be in. I'm going to go back to Hooper here.
Okay, so Hooper is the play. Coming back off the injury after missing 3 weeks, still got 6 targets. Didn't do much with them, 2 catches for 32 yards, but they're going to get him more involved in the offense. From Keksi, on Periscope. Was relying on Cortland Sutton today, but now I see snow. So should I pivot to either Samuels? I'm not sure which.
Jalen? Oh, not Jalen.
Yeah, I don't know. There's many Samuel.
I mean, there's Debo, there's Curtis.
Yeah, but Curtis is a Samuel, Debo is a Samuel. This is Samuels or Lockett. I'd go Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
I think Tyler Lockett's in a great spot against Carolina. So I think that's the play. So good luck to you, Kexy. Play Tyler Lockett. Montgomery or Sutton as a flex play today?
You want to be safe, Ben, and go Montgomery?
I'd go Montgomery in standard or half-point PPR. And full-point PPR, I'll go Cortland Sutton.
That's fair.
Okay. Casey Chief Keef, couple of quarterback matchups between Kirk Cousins and Josh Allen. Ooh, I don't like it for either of them. Or Mahomes and Breeze. You go Breeze at home even over Mahomes in this spot against the Indianapolis Colts. You're the one that said that there might be a shootout.
Right. But I also am the one that said that, like, look, this is why you got Patrick Mahomes as early as you did.
Right. I don't think the snow will necessarily bother him, but I'd probably go Drew Brees. That's a safer play for me this week, even over Mahomes. And then Cousins or Josh Allen, I'm probably going Josh Allen for the rushing floor.
And I want to go Kirk Cousins because Thielen's back.
Oh, Thielen is back. Yeah. You know what? All right, you've convinced me. Let's go Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
From P. DeSantis 25, our buddy checks in usually most weeks. Non-PPR, Adrian Peterson, Patrick Laird, or Shady McCoy. Non-PPR,
Adrian Peterson.
Even against Philadelphia?
I mean, again, are we relying on receptions for Laird? That's the problem.
I don't think so, Fensty, because I think he had 15 carries in his last game. I think I'm going Patrick Laird.
I'll ride with you there.
Okay.
I really don't like Adrian Peterson.
Casey Chief Keef once again. Jack Doyle, Dallas Goedert, the guy we've been waiting for a question for, or Jared Cook in a half-point PPR.
Probably going with Jared Cook there.
I think Cook is probably the play in a half-point. Yeah. From Purdy 1. Hey guys, Tyler Boyd, John Brown, or Cole Beasley?
Oh, wow. Can you believe we're getting a Brown versus Beasley question here?
I can.
Do you really want to be the person that loses with John Brown on your bench at this point?
It's against Pittsburgh, though. Like,
I know it, but
Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick. It's a terrible matchup for him.
Who's the other option that's not a Buffalo Bill?
Tyler Boyd. But he gets the Patriots today, and likely Stephon Gilmore.
Right.
But he sees so many targets.
You may just have to go with Tyler Boyd and pray.
I think I go Beasley, to be perfectly honest. I think he's in the best matchup of anybody in the middle of the field. So I know it's Cole Beasley, but 3 touchdowns in 3 straight games. Josh Allen trusts him. That'll be my play. So we disagree on that, but it's certainly close. Kareem Hunt or Devontae Freeman? Kareem Hunt is against Arizona. Devontae Freeman on the road against San Francisco. I'm going Kareem Hunt.
Yep, me too. Especially if you need the points, you have to.
Full point PPR, start 3. Sean, you're killing me here. Kenny Galladay, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin. He's just giving us all his wide receivers. Sean, you're better than this, buddy. All right,
Moore and Galladay thus far have clinched.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
But he also has Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Keenan Allen. I think I would go Galladay. Yeah, I think Galladay, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, and Lockett, even though he's going to get a solid matchup, stays on the bench because those 3 guys are studs.
Well, that's fine. That's fine by me. I mean, Keenan Allen definitely is intriguing to me too.
But against Minnesota in the middle of the field. But Galladay gets the Bucks. DJ Moore gets Seattle. Chris Godwin is Chris Godwin.
Right.
Jameis Winston or Dak Prescott today? Do you trust that Jameis will be able to be accurate? I'm not saying not turn the ball over because that's different because he'll still force throws. I'm saying, do you worry that his injury will cause him to be wildly inaccurate?
I mean, I worry about him every single week of my life, to be honest with you. I mean, you know me, Ben. You know I'm not a Jameis guy.
I have to decide between him, Matt Ryan, or somebody else in one of my semifinal matchups this week. I do have Godwin, and that's part of the reason that I'm considering just rolling the dice and throwing him out there to pair them up together.
If you're that confident in Jameis,
I'm not. That's the point. I'm not that confident, but I need to figure out what to do.
I mean, Jameis has the better matchup.
Yes, he does.
Man, I'd rather go. I mean, personally, I'd rather go Dak. Professionally, I feel like I still got to put Jameis out there.
Okay. All right, and then last one. And thank you for the. Oh man, you're killing me. A couple more questions coming. We do answer every question as long as we're on the air. Marlon Mack or Devontae Freeman from MCDKC.
What are your expectations for Freeman in the passing game today? Anything?
Not really. I mean, maybe just because, they're not going to be able to run up the middle with him. I'm trying to look at what his numbers were last week in the passing game. The last 2 weeks, he's had 4 catches, but for like 10 yards. So not much. I'd probably go Marlon Mack, even against a tough matchup against the Saints, because I feel like that's how they're going to beat him. So I would go Marlon Mack.
All right. I mean, again, I wish I knew if T.Y. Hilton was playing either, but
yeah.
I'm gonna go Marlon Mack as well. I don't love it, but I'm gonna go Marlon.
Last question from KC Chief Keef. One more time. Who do you think is the best quarterback wide receiver stack for DraftKings this week? In cash, no brainer. Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yes.
No brainer. However, if we're talking about tournaments, I think in the snow you could go Mahomes and Hill.
What about Wilson and Lockett?
Wilson and Lockett, I think, is a great play. You could go Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown.
You could go Jimmy G and Debo.
Jimmy G and Debo. You can go Fitzpatrick and Parker.
What about this one? What about this one? How about this one? What about Eli and Darius Slayton? Pen drop.
You're really gonna drop your pen on playing Eli Manning? This is what it's come down to. Like, this is our life.
No, that's a mic drop. A pen drop is different. A pen drop is we're throwing it all on the table.
You know who I kind of like? I guess I mentioned it earlier on the show. Gardner and Conley. Minshew and Conley.
You're all over it, Ben.
Run it back with Darren Waller, baby. Let's get weird today. Also, Will Fuller is active today, according to our my guy Derek Brown of the Quan Edge. You brave enough to roll out Fuller today?
I mean, it depends on who I'm starting him against. But if I'm building my lineups in
if you're building a tournament team and you want to be able to get off of Hopkins, which I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing, but from a leverage perspective, it's certainly in play. And Julian Edelman will play today. Big news. Big news. Sky point from Fensty. Will Fuller coming off the questionable tag against Tennessee. Like, I mean, you could play both. You could go Watson, Fuller, and Hopkins.
Right.
Run it back with A.J. Brown or maybe Derrick Henry on the other side. But Derrick Henry's dealing with an injury too.
He is, but he's fine. He's going to play still.
So plenty of options this week. And those are your questions. So thank you guys for being a part of the show as always. Good luck in your fantasy semifinals. Good luck if you're playing in daily this week. If you want to challenge me to a contest over on DK, you can hit me up at Benny Heis. You have to find Justin on his own, though, because he's currently in the middle of his 50. He's in the middle of his 50 matchups as he goes Tony Reale on me, tosses the crumbled up paper at the camera. Fensty, where can people find you? Where can they listen to you?
At Fensty Sports and also SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday through Saturday. Monday through Friday on Alarm After Hours, fantasyalarm.com show right there. Midnight Eastern to 1 a.m. Eastern, soon to be midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern starting in January. And then Saturdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, it's me and a rotating co-host, Joe Dolan from the Fantasy Free Agents.
Hey, big game Joe Dolan.
Yep, I got to host with them yesterday. We had a very crazy show, and next week, championship week, it's going to be even crazier.
Be fantastic. All right, by the way, our buddy Mimsy, he just checked in. He goes, no, I'm too late. Should we help him out? Should we be good guys? Should we mention?
You know what? He's been so loyal. Yes. But this is it. The floodgates can't open here, Ben.
Ryan Tannehill or Carson Wentz?
My connection's out. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go with Ryan Tannehill here.
All right, and then Keenan Allen or Cooper Kupp, full point PPR.
I'm going to go with Keenan Allen here. Cooper Kupp scares me a little bit.
Yeah, middle of the field, Keenan Allen seeing plenty of volume. Cooper Kupp hasn't been on the field for a bunch of snaps. Robert Woods is getting all the targets right now. I think Keenan Allen is probably the play. That's the show. Thank you guys for watching. For Fensty, I'm Heis. We'll do it again next Sunday. I'll be in Chicago. Hopefully, I will get Mama and Papa Heis to provide better internet connection because we need to be there for you. Mom, Dad, step it up. I'm doing this from your third floor. Let's make this happen. For Fensty, I'm Ben. Talk to you guys soon. Be good. Good luck this week.
Good luck.